Coming up next.
I know you and I talked before, and you were saying about ADHD and time blindness. And what I have told friends and family and clients is that I see it as a gift from my
Mm,
end.
mm,
And the world that we live in doesn't necessarily see it as a gift because we have deadlines and we have due dates and we have all these time constraints in our linear world that we live in and exist in our physical bodies. And so I just want to say that to whoever's listening, including you, Tanya, that it is a gift. And so it's like, how do I have this gift but live in this world reality, you know?
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Joya, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to Faith Over Addiction. I'm your host, Tanya Joya. I have Rebecca Hogue with me here today. And before you slip away, we're talking some about time. And time and I have been having an argument probably all my life. So Rebecca is a holistic therapist and coach. And a lot of what she talks about is perfectionism, overwhelm, self-doubt, emotional exhaustion. But today, we're going to talk about that argument with time and then definitions and clarity around addiction. So Rebecca, welcome. Talk to us about this healing around time that we can all have.
Yes. So the book that I have is Healing Time, and then time is TIME because it stands for different things that we'll go into probably later, but move into a future of freedom and flow. So who doesn't want more freedom in their life and to feel like you're flowing instead of like, drowning or barely hanging on, whatever it is. I know you and I talked before, and you were saying about ADHD and time blindness. And what I have told friends and family and clients is that I see it as a gift from my end. And the world that we live in doesn't necessarily see it as a gift because we have deadlines and we have due dates and we have all these time constraints in our linear world that we live in and exist in our physical bodies. And so I just want to say that to whoever's listening, including you, Tanya, that it is a gift. And so it's like, how do I have this gift but live in this world reality, you know? And
Absolutely. Well, unpack for us what time blindness was a new concept for me about 2 years ago, where I went, oh, that makes so much sense on why, I'm 2 or 3 minutes late, or I look at this deadline and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll just wait and do that a little bit later. What is
mhm.
what's it how are you defining time? How are you defining God's time, time blindness? What does that look like?
So I don't have it super memorized, but I know there's the Kronos time and then the Kairos time, I believe. And so just for short, what I usually explain is that in this world, we have time as linear, right? We have the 24 hours in a day, we have our, 12 months, our 365 days. But, we're taught that God sees time all at the same time. So
Mhm.
then if that's true, then he already knows the end, right? Because it's beginning and the end, and he knows what the end is. Then and his ways are harder than our ways, but we can be like him, we can know him well. Then how do so then it gets more and more possible to start to view time in that higher way. So what I talk about in my book is that we can view time in like our past self, our present self, and our future self. And when we do that, then we can start to view it more like holistically, and we start to appreciate okay, so for example, with the time blindness, in the present moment, we might not want to do something, but if we think like, depending obviously what it is, like, okay, I can do this thing, and then my future self, which could be 5 minute future self, it could be 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years future self, it could really make a difference. And then you get that experience, and ideally you want to start with something that is short, that you get that dopamine hit, so you're like, okay, and that was really good, that helped me. So even though it didn't maybe feel pleasant in the moment, I didn't want to do it, I wasn't getting dopamine from doing it, you do get that later on sometimes. So it just starts to help merge all aspects of ourselves, because we're always changing, like our
Mhm.
cells turn over all the time, we're changing all the time. And if we're not really changing, then we're kind of staying stuck, and that is not helpful for anyone.
How is God talking to us about time?
It's a great question. And I noticed how you said it too, right? So when clients say something, I noticed how they say it. And um, I am in the middle of learning more about that. Where I am at right now in my journey of that is that he wants us to be with him in the moments, right? We were talking before recording about gratitude and appreciating things in the moment, because what a lot of times we do live very much in the past or in the future. And those can keep us stuck if we are not knowing how to be in a present moment in ways that fill us up. So it could be as simple as pausing. And for those who can't see me or couldn't hear, I was taking a deeper, comfortable breath and coming back into my body if I'm feeling like really hurried and, go, go, go with um, our Western world, right? And all the schedules that we end up keeping and things like that. So coming back into the present moment. And if you look at what God says, his name is, he says, I am that I am. And he also says I'm the beginning and I'm the end. So he is all of those things. And so because he is all of those things, and we are to be like him, and he has given us the ability to do that, then we need to understand our past selves, our present selves, our future selves in those ways. Be- because what I often see is that we sometimes inadvertently don't like something about ourselves, or we don't like a version of ourselves. If we don't like, and not that we have to like what we did or all that stuff, but can we love that version of us? Because if we're believing that Jesus died for us because he loves us, then, and we're supposed to be like him, then that means that we also need to know how to do that with ourselves. And if we don't, then obviously we can ask him to help us know how to do that.
So when you're there's this, I guess it happened in my own life of I need to get this cleaned up before I can come to God. I need to get this, I need to be willing to repent of this before I can come to God. In God's timeline, has God walked away from me while I'm doing that? Has he said, nope, you need to, this delves into your realm of perfectionism. How do I need to get myself in order? And ADHD is part of this, is if I could just be on time, if I could just this. How does that
Mm,
factor into the sense of time and who we are?
yes, good question. So, um, I am viewing it. So I heard this recently, and it was saying, let your soul lead your personality, not your personality lead your soul. And not
Mm,
that your personality is bad at all, because it's a gift that we have that it's unique to us, right? So if you think about the soul, right, it's so important. We're taught all about that in church. Then how do we let our soul lead the personality so that the very best of ourselves is is out there, is coming forward, is blessing others, is um, is a blessing to ourselves. And when we can do that, then that, I mean, it just makes it easier versus like, and when you said the word repent, I think, in even though it's obviously the word that is we have a common understanding of. But if there's a negative connotation to that for someone who's
mm,
listening, then set that over to the side on the shelf and look at it from the perspective of God is wanting us to be more whole, right? So if you go back to the garden and the trees, you have, those two trees, you have the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And you could treat, but there was a bunch of other trees too. We don't remember that sometimes. And it was like, oh, you can do everything, but hey, I don't want you to have unnecessary pain. I don't want you to have unnecessary separation from me. Like, I want to be in relationship with you. I'm enjoying this, right? And this is life over here. So then we chose separation, and separation, even in the words like good and evil, like that's all there is. But there's so much more than that. And so perhaps like looking at it from that lens of like, there's life in this. And like, so how could we take this aspect of looking at things in the view of life, which, if you think about like wisdom,
mm.
gives us more life and more understanding and peace and joy and all those fruits of the spirits that we definitely want. So if repentance looks at it, if you're looking at it like separation, it keeps us separated, then put that on the shelf and look at it of like, okay, how can I be more whole in the way that God wants me to? What's the block there? Is there
Mm.
anything that I'm inadvertently missing that's keeping me from this joy of the Lord, inadvertently keeping me from peace and all those things?
Yeah. As we're walking into that, addiction would seem like one of the things that keeps us from that wholeness, from that joy. How are you defining addiction?
Similar to you with the Gabor Mate, where it's like, well, I think let's say what it's, I want to say also what I don't see it as only. So a lot of times how I have believed it for a long time that kept it in the separation, you know, tree, if you will, is that it's like a label like, oh, they're broken, they're bad, they're all these things. If we view it, and that can be also our experience with that. So I don't want to negate that. Like, if someone has been harmed by someone who has an addiction,
Mhm.
like absolutely know that there's an understanding from me about that, and as you as well. So but that view of it can be expanded on, and when we expand on that, it helps us to have an understanding, and understanding brings a lot of the other things that we're wanting, which is, peace and clarity about what to do and all those things. So Gabor Mate, very interesting man. If any of you are listening to this, I would encourage you to look him up. He was a Holocaust survivor as a baby, and he's a medical doctor, and he is just seems like a very real soul. And he says that addiction is really about attachment wounds and childhood trauma, oftentimes. So if we look at it from that lens and we separate our pain just for a moment and we put that over here and honor that we can hold both of them at the same time, but sometimes it's difficult. If we can set it over here for now and we see that there's an attachment wound for how that person got to where they are, that is what Jesus did, right? He saw beyond a a thing in front of him, and he saw like the person for who they were and what was going on in their life. And that is not our job as far as like we're not here to therapize, a family member or friend or anything like that, but to have an understanding and then from there be like, okay, and like how do you, or if that's difficult, like ask God, like I want to view it, how do you view this, and then what is my role, rather than what oftentimes an undercurrent message in the church is like, well, you gotta, just deal with it or you gotta fix it, like those are just two opposites or two things, but like there's so much more in between. So
Talk to us about attachment and the attachment theory. Kind of, I know it's very deep, but can you give us just an overview of what that is? And is there a biblical character that you would be like, this was probably their attachment issue?
okay, let's see. You might have to remind me of that last one because I forget that.
Yeah.
Um, so there's different attachment styles, but basically it's how people form and maintain the relationship with in early childhood with a caregiver, which could be, a biological parent or not. It could be someone even at daycare, it could be a babysitter, could be any of that. And so what the main attachment styles is like secure attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant, disorganized, and then there's some other, depending on what you're reading, there's different types. But if because it when you're younger, it's about survival, right? You need a caregiver to give you care so that you survive. If it's not safe and secure, then you develop other ways of interacting and with this caregiver. So if there's like an anxiousness to it, then it's like, okay, well, I got to make sure they're okay. Or if they're like, throwing things loud, whatever, you might just like, okay, I'm going to avoid because that's how I feel safe. So a lot of it has to do with like, how do I feel safe? How do I get what I need? Because the caregiver, is not doing that for me. And so then oftentimes there's coping skills that are developed in maladaptive, we call it, ways, or not healthy ways, not helpful in the long run. In the moment, it might have been something that was helpful because then they didn't have to feel whatever that was really painful to feel, or not even. It could be something that's confusing, which
Mm.
and there's nobody to give clarity to. So it's like, well, I at least understand that I feel better over here versus this confusion.
We've gone through the understanding of what addiction is, and a lot of folks that listen to this podcast are in a relationship with someone that they believe to have an addiction. What do they need to be looking at, not at the person who has the addiction, but what do they need to be looking at for themselves? How do they need to be organizing themselves and their lives?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So I think the first thing is defining what the values that they have are. So like in there's lots of different ways that you can categorize that. I have 10 that I list in my book, and they can be, financial, relational, spiritual, physical health, lots of different ways. So like really knowing like what do I value in these different areas of my life, or just pick one, the one that maybe you struggle with the most or the one that might be easier to delve into. Basically, we're not trying to avoid any of this stuff. So what are our values? And then what is it that I need? So there's something that we talk about in therapy and school as well, child development, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so if you look at that, and particularly the bottom one, do I have the basic things, housing, food, like those things that we need to be able to survive and live. And then if you kind of keep going through those and you make sure, like, do I have this? If not, like, how do I make sure that I'm as stable enough in this area to be able to move through these other ones. Because sometimes, unfortunately, inadvertently, the church is like, well, you need to do this thing. I'm like, but they don't even like have secure food or housing, so like how are you going to get on them about this? And so it's kind of keeping them stuck and causing more shame about where they're at in their life versus like, hey, I'm coming alongside you, let me support you, right? Like Jesus, he did heal. He wasn't here for physical healing, but he did physical healing.
Mm-hmm.
But he was speaking more to like, yeah, he healed people from blindness, right? But it wasn't just about their physical eyes. He was pointing to the spiritual seeing. If he healed them so they could walk, it wasn't just about their physical walking, it was about their spiritual walking. It was
Mm-hmm.
always pointing to something. And so we need to make sure that we have what we need. What are our values? Do we have what we need? And asking that question is not just okay, but it's really important. Like, what do you need? Asking ourselves, what do I need? Do I have what I need? Versus wants, and trying to separate those out. You're allowed to have wants, but just kind of notice, do I have what I need?
Or that woman who is at the point of, I don't know what I need. I have spent
Mm,
so much time caretaking for other
mm,
people and making sure that the household runs right, or that the money comes in, or that this person gets to work. How does she, is there something that you would suggest that she begins to even open that door and say, how do I even begin to discern what it is that I need?
that's a good question. Yeah. Lots of different ways. If they feel like they have a healthy, attached friend or somebody that they know at church, that they feel safe to just be themselves, and that is what I would recommend first, because that having a support system or even just one person is really important. They show that too for attachment styles and attachment growing up, that even if there's like a horrible childhood of trauma, if there's one safe person in that child's life, it changes so much because they have this example that's just confirming all these other things. And we are naturally, drawn to that safety. So if there's that person in their life, then that could be helpful. They could, and I know some people have different opinions about AI. So obviously be protective and wise about what you put in there. You don't need to put in details, but it might just be like, how do I find what I need? You could Google it, of course, too. And also it might be that like if you were to wake up tomorrow and there was just one thing, even if it was small, that made things a little bit better, what would that be?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can be helpful also. And it
Mm-hmm.
could be even that it's like a little bit of joy or laughter or a little bit of quiet, go on a walk actually. Like, wow, I had forgotten that I like to go on walks. And even if it was 10 minutes down the street, you got out of the house and you got some sun and you got hopefully fresh air. We don't know so much in our society now, but
Right, right. When you're thinking about this and you're thinking about this, let's come back to time. In and out of time, when a person is giving away all of their time to somebody else or to somebody else's cause or malady, how do they generate that pause? How do they begin to say, hey, wait, I'm valuable too?
mm, I think even asking the question of themselves, like, do do I value myself, and how much do I value myself? And in that valuing of myself, what am I able to do with what I have now, right? In this situation that I do have some control over. And I know this is difficult. I'm thinking about like example of parents who are like, I can't even use the restroom by myself because the kids are like wanting to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, like I've heard parents be like, I tell them like I'm going to the restroom and I lock the door and I put in earbuds and I listen to like some calming music or something like that. And so yes, you kind of hear the banging on the door out there, but it can be when we have something that feels like it threatens our survival through, and it can be through addictions, it can be through lots of different things that feel unsafe, then there's not as much of an ability to think outside the box or think kind of creatively. So that is also where it's helpful to have at least one support system, or to ask the question, online, like, how do I even, whatever. So I want people, and I'm saying online because we have these resources available to us, and let's use them for something that gives back to us, not just that we use to maybe avoid or doom scroll or whatever. And so, kind of to that point, also check in with where your time is being utilized in the moment. And if there is like the doom scrolling kind of thing, it makes sense. There's not like a shame to that. It makes sense. You want to kind of check out and not have to feel all of that stuff. And could that start to shift where it's like, actually, what do I need that's going to invest? So one of my clients, my coaching clients, Marie, who I talk about in the book, she is a caregiver and has chronic health problems and chronic pain that she is working through. And she said the other day, she wants to do rest that invests. And I'm like, that's gold. Like, so if you think about rest times, there's all different types of rest. I forget who it is, but she has 7 different types of rest. There's spiritual rest, sensory, creative, physical, like all that. And so the rest that we do needs to invest. So if you're scrolling on your phone and that's a form of rest to you, but it's not actually investing in what you're wanting to go back to the values, then that's worth looking at and seeing, what do I want to change about that? How long am I spending on my phone? Let me look on the app. Oh, wow, this many minutes. Okay. I'm going to put a little limit on my phone, and I'm going to try to not override the limit. And then I'm going to use it for something else that does invest more in me and where I want to go and how I want to feel.
So if I've been investing in this other relationship that has drained me, what you described several of them, but what exactly would rest that invests look like? So I'm feeling drained and I need
Mm-hmm.
rest that invests. What would be some activities?
Mm. Though going on a walk, one, uh, putting on a song that you haven't listened to in a long time, and moving your body however you want to because no one's looking. And if that
Absolutely.
feels weird, then notice that that's a block, because that's not something that kids feel weird about, because they're like, no one's judging them, right? So if we're feeling weird, that's because that is a deep program in us that is like judged, but it does not need to be judged. So just move your body, even if you're just like swaying back and forth, and maybe even allowing yourself to smile and notice that you're smiling. Going outside, getting some sun in on you, like closing your eyes and like feeling the sun. That helps with the circadian rhythm, which is going to help with sleep. And even just doing a little bit of stretching. This is all things that we talk about in therapy too. Like, I know we've heard it, and it can be difficult because like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I want you to notice why. If you're thinking, yeah, 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 I want you to notice why you might be thinking like, oh, yeah, yeah, I know that. Is it because there's not a buy-in to how important and helpful that is to invest? Because our sleep impacts the rest of our day, all the waking hours, and it can be really difficult to get quality sleep. Like, I used to need to be on anxiety medicine, depression medicine, and sleep medicine. And I am
Mm.
not on any of those anymore, thankfully. And that was over time with, lots of different things, therapies and foods and stuff like that. Some people may need to be on that, and that's okay. So, but what I'm saying is, the sleep being so important, because what we're experiencing during the day, the thoughts that we have, the emotions that we feel, are all in our body. So if we go
Mhm.
to bed that way, right? And there's that verse, what is it? Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Isn't just like, oh, make sure that you are all good, like everything is pretend kind of fine things. It's like, hey, make sure that you've cleared out everything that you can internally, and that you're and and it's not about doing it perfectly. It's about trying to make sure that you are giving yourself that quality rest for your brain, your body, your spirit to be restored.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's like recent understanding discovery of a glymphatic, not lymphatic, but a glymphatic system that is in our brain that cleans out stuff from the day. And so if that's not getting cleaned out, then it piles up in the brain. So even if you're doing like all these good things, like if you're not helping to prepare yourself to have that sleep, and it's not, again, not black and white, all or nothing. It's not about like, oh, I had bad sleep, it's all over. It's like it's incremental. If you think, like a bridge that maybe has steps on it, and you're here, and then here's where you want to be. Every step or plank on that bridge matters. So a lot of times, especially being raised in the States and in church, there's this idea of like, well, you're here and you need to be here. So like, why are you not over here? Like, well, can you walk with me? Can you show me those little ways that are particular to my situation?
So it's a discipleship piece and a glymphatic system. So like a sweeper that comes in
Yeah, yeah. So,
and sweeps
and
up
it
the
starts
floor.
with the morning. Yeah, getting outside if you can, get some sun in your eyes if possible, not in with your eyes open. Stretch a little bit, drink some water as you're drinking, thanking the water for nourishing you, like all those little things that helps you be back in the moment so that you can then see more clearly what's going on from past and future to be able to make those decisions. Now, all this is in investment. And like a seed, all throughout the Bible, there's this plants analogy, like, and all of this that matters, whether the growth of the seed. We're not like, oh, it's a seed and now it's fully grown. Yes, we enjoy the fruit of that, but all of the stuff before that also matters. So
It's
everything you're doing.
it's it's like you can't run out in mid-August and scatter seeds and hope to have a crop by, the end of October.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to
Well
start
said.
earlier with that. And Rebecca, this is fantastic because we've circled back to your book on time. So what do you want people to get from your book on time? What's the main essence if they're to pick it up? What are they going to find there?
I have prayed that it would be translated to exactly what each person needs. And so I hope that they get exactly what they're needing, which is oftentimes maybe not what it feels like what we want, but it actually often is what we want. So there's this desire to have peace and joy and all these things in life. But if we're not feeling any of those now, it feels like they may never happen. But I want them to know that it is possible to get more and more of that. So throughout the book, I talk about TIME. So T is for talk. We need to have a good support process. What's going on? Where's my blocks? What do I feel like is keeping me stuck? Not just that person, perhaps who is in their behavioral patterns, their problematic behaviors that we may or may not call addiction. Um, Not just talking about them, but like talking about what it is about them or their behaviors or lack of certain things that are impacting me. How do I feel all of that? And then it help and I for investigate what's well, yeah, investigating kind of goes with what I was saying before, but investigating what are those blocks and then taking some steps through movement, the M for movement, and sometimes we go forward a little bit and then back a little bit. As long as there's a trajectory upward, like if it's
Mhm.
graph, that's great because it's growth, right? That's tree of life, growth, wisdom, all of that. And then as you're doing those, and this is not just linear steps. So yes, we understand them as linear because that's how our books are written, right?
Yeah.
Left to right, top to bottom. But it's all happening at the same time. We're always talking and investigating and moving and embodying. E for embodying. So I want them to walk away with a if it start with chapter one, and I have that free, I believe, still on my website. Um, and start with chapter one, and then if it's something that you feel like you're ready to delve into, as you read the rest of the book, I believe that you're going to be like, okay, I can. You pick one thing that you want to work on, and you go through it. There's exercises in the book, and I want them to walk away with a plan for at least one of the goals that they have in their life, to not feel shame about that they didn't meet someone else's expectations, whether that's through their family of origin, through the culture, through what church people have said, any of that. Like, what is, if time is an aspect of God's character, what is that relationship with time and thereby God in their life? And how could that be in a way that is more aligned with their soul leading their personality and walking together in that for peace?
How are you pairing that with scripture? So you have some scriptures that you're pairing that with. What's your favorite one right now? What's the one you're holding on to?
Hmm. I there's several that I am that keep coming up into mind, but Jesus said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, so if you said that and I'm believing you, then if I don't feel that I'm believing you, what's that block? Because you're not going to tell me something that's impossible for me to experience also.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean I have to fully understand it in my human way, right? His ways are higher than our ways. So I'm like, okay, if your yoke is easy and your burden is light, then I want you to show me what that looks like. Like, I want to experience easy. I want to experience light. Um, and then that goes with the verses like, you have not because you ask and you shall receive. So I'm like, okay, like, I want to believe your promises, not just here in my head, but here in my heart, my gut, my whole being, in my
Yeah.
day to day and my actions. And again, that's one step at a time, not all or nothing.
Mhm. Fabulous. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time today. Share with us your website and the title of your book again.
Yes, the website is www.canvas, like a painting canvas,
Uh-huh.
cw.com. Canvas, cw.com. That stands for Canvas Counseling and Wellness.
Mhm.
And the title of my book is Healing Time, Move into a Future of Freedom and Flow. And so I offer licensed counseling in Texas and Florida, and there's some other therapists in my practice also. And then therapeutic coaching as well for somebody who is not in either of those states and wants some support with what they're walking through in life.
And if they get on your website, they can look at both the book, the therapeutic counseling, and the counseling as well. So they can
Yes.
contact you that way.
Yes,
Fantastic.
absolutely.
Rebecca, thank you so much. This has been so helpful in clarifying definitions, clarifying where God is in this process, and as a time blind person, to begin to think about time a little differently. So I really appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.